Hello everyone, good morning. Very cozy crowd, so I'll just be moving around and interrupt in between. If you need to, we can have a more interactive discussion as well.
And it's on top of.
Looks like there's some interference. So, yeah, as was introduced, all throughout my 18 years in my career, I've always been working with taking the technology that's available and solving business problems. I come from a business family. I think the lone black sheep. My dad thinks at some point I'll figure out and come back to business. But I have always been intrigued by what problems can we solve and how can I do it differently with the technology available. So I'll reduce friction, create more value, bring more efficiency. And in that forefront, started my journey as .NET developer. And over the course of years, worked with large insurance companies in the US, was also part of AWS before I joined Affinity, where for 5 years I was helping enterprise customers adopt the digital technologies. And in my stint there, I was very lucky to be part of the first big enterprise who moved all in, lock, stock, barrel on cloud, including the system of engagement to system of records, SAP, everything from Tata Consumer Products. Anybody from Tata here? Tata Group? No? Okay. Then I can say more. But I think I always enjoyed working with data, working with problems, and that led me to the discovery 2 years back on what are decentralized technologies and what's the role it can play. While it seemed quite early for its time, but once I saw it, I could not unsee it, and that's what led me to my journey at Affinity, and I'll share some of our impressions and the learnings in this session today. A fundamental part has been about establishing digital trust. Like, I think trust is fundamental to business, right? If I don't feel safe talking to you, working with you, I would not bring my business to you. And the way our digital technologies have evolved, it's fundamentally almost happened by accident, right? The digital era was not supposed to be buying coffee or booking your salon. So there's no identity layer or trust layer in the internet. It's just like two packets that can go from one place to another in a reliable fashion. That's how internet was imagined way back, and allow very decentralized free flow of information without having any big walled gardens of repository or custodians of data. So while we went on to our digital journey by accident, almost it's no surprise that the first thing we all do is try to say who we are on a digital journey, right? If I'm trying to, doesn't matter, I'm trying to buy a B2B SaaS or I'm buying a consumer centric product, I have to establish myself on who I am, and most of the time still it surprises me, it starts with establishing username and password, which actually doesn't tell anything about the identity. It's just a means to an end. And actually, if you think back, it's quite different than how you and I interact in a physical world, right? Like, some of us have been introduced through SaaS insiders. I have received connections, I've spoken to them in the morning, and that happened through a trusted introducer. I trust somebody and they trust somebody else, and then through that I have got an introduction, and I just happen to share more information more freely with them, and they have a sense of reputation or sense of claims and facts about me, and that helps them to have a value exchange with each other, right? And it's the same when you try to sell B2B software. It's value-based selling. You try to explain what your credentials are, and you explain yourself to the other party. But that is very difficult to do in a digital world today. Like, just taking all the things about myself which are relevant and exchange it in a transaction so that the other party can really establish trust with it is at the fundamental part of what was broken. And we never faced this as a significant challenge so far because we were just getting started on the digital journey, right? Like, we're trying to understand what more we can do just by having easy access to the services. And the byproduct of that happened to be, there became these big tech gardens where your data is with most of the people that are not directly in your control. And how does it affect businesses? Businesses don't get 360-degree view of you as a personality, right? And more so importantly, why it is becoming relevant now, I'm sure, like, we're hearing about AI. There's another session going on right now. I think that's why the crowd is so less here. It's about how can you adopt generative AI in the enterprises, right? So AI is the next big thing, and I'm particularly excited about the personal AI space, where I think things are getting more smaller and smaller. It will move to your edge devices. where you will be able to get we will be able to get agents that will act on our behalf to do the mundane work that doesn't need our cognitive load. So I'm really personally very excited about AI. But in other way, it also creates new threats or new challenges like deepfakes, right? Anything that we do today as a song and dance of KYC to establish trust with a entity, I think is almost out of the door. It can be replicated, right? It's quite well understood now. Synthetic identity, it's a new problem where bad actors create what seems like the accurate information. They can take SSN or they can take fake Aadhaar and then add some other names and other information to it, create a person that looks like a human being, and they actually don't go after the person itself. They make it, the biggest threat we have heard is insider threats, right? So they make it a person who lives inside an organization, and so it makes them feel like a real person to have access to the system. And then they don't just go after a $500 account breach, they might go for a 5 million, 5 billion account breach from an insider perspective, right? Because they can get access to system like an individual that they should not have otherwise got because it's particularly a fake personality. So these are here and now problems. It's not a problem that will happen in future. We need to have solutions for these now. Just happened so that it happened so fast for us that we did not have time to prepare well for it. But what I'm going to share today with you is that there are open standards, tech neutral approaches which can help us mitigate risk from these threats. It's a very complicated problem, so not one thing will fix everything. I'm not claiming that, but I'll give you some, I'm hoping I'll talk to you and share more about what can be done to strengthen your cybersecurity posture against these things, which fundamentally rests in trust. Somebody's on the other side. I have to establish trust. We happen to believe that identifier is one way of knowing people online, right? We just know that every database has a user ID and every application has an account. So that's what you think, like I have to first trust and validate if this account is owned by me. But I think that is almost a thing of the past. I think it's identity and data are quite interrelated. It's not different, right? My identity about my demographics, about my access to system, I work in a project, I'm allocated to a partner, like whatever these relationships are, it is part of that identity, and so it's all my data that creates identity, and with that identity I form a relationship with the businesses and applications that I work with. And more so right now, the emerging threats are not only from bad actors, governments are also trying to protect their citizens, right? Because not everybody would be able to safeguard themselves without some guardrails and regulations. And that we see why, if the intent you see behind GDPR, the DPDPA which will be launched in India also soon, which is all about making sure that you put consumers, the users' best interest at the center, right? If you take apart all the nuances and details, it's about putting the user consent at the center, and that means transparently tell user what you're going to serve them for, what kind of data you're collecting them from them, and give them the control to be able to leave it with you or not give you access to do something or take control back. So this is fundamentally driving, and it's another aspect of this is, I'm talking to a lot of founders. Any founders here in the crowd? Yeah, so a lot of you, right? So you will be able to correlate with it. So to name one, Grow Club is a bicycle, they've created a very novel model on renting bicycles instead of buying it. And the first interaction I had when we were trying to pitch Affinity to them, after 15-20 minutes, he said, Giri, you're trying to tell us how to manage customer data. I actually don't want to manage customer data. I have a small team. Things like this happen, right? Like you hear in the news. I will be able to do my business without trying to do much data crunching. Right now, I'm not so popular, so maybe people are not looking out for my database. But let me be very clear that it looks like something I need to safeguard myself. If I capture a lot of customer PI data, especially parents and children's data, it's actually business risk for me. And this I'm seeing from a lot of new age founders that they're very clear that it's not that world of just hog data, right? Take whatever is essential for you, take it in the right way, because you know these things are just going to happen, and how do you deal with that? So there are many mechanisms to deal with that: minimize data, anonymize data, you encrypt data. But again, the technology advancements have made it so that even if you anonymize data, I think if you read about it, it's very clear that mathematically you can now with high confidence recreate an ID. It's called re-identification. So even if there are anonymized data about you from multiple databases that get breached in maybe a few years back, that would not have been a problem. But in current age and time, they can re-identify me from those anonymized data. So it's like everything that we do, we need to be questioning that. Are we prepared for the next decade now in this era? So just to establish then, what does digital trust mean? To me, it means having shared control of all the parties involved, as in any human relationship, being transparent of what this exchange is about, having provenance, like if you shared something, what is the lineage of that, and then having confidence that it will work a certain way that was promised to me at the time of transaction. And this is also correlated with the market research that consumers are indicating that they need more control. I think you can relate with it. If you get an app which asks for a lot of data or access to your information, my first reaction is delete that app, because I just don't want to see the value, because it just seems like you're over encroaching even at the time of entry. Like I'm just onboarding on your app. I don't know what else you will do once I start my relationship with you. So that is becoming here and now, and people still don't like friction. They've not got used to the digital technologies. So they want safety, and it's business users as well as consumers. They want safety, but they want frictionless experience. So how do you get speed with safety? So I thought, like, let's go back to our basics. How do we do that in the physical world of information sharing, data sharing, establishing trust, provenance, control, transparency? And if you look at it, like if I have to prove, if I wanted to stay at Hotel Royal Orchard, what I'll do is take something out of my wallet and share a card, driving license or passport with the receptionist, and hopefully they will see that, yeah, this looks like not a tampered document. They don't call the passport office, they don't call the driving license office, right, and say, hey, can you let me know if this person exists in your database? They just have a mechanism established, maybe holograms, maybe things like that, or trust and balance. Obviously, you take a photocopy and you know you can correlate it back. You can prove the association to me. I may have to sign it, right? So you can say at least prove that Giri presented this fake document. So now Giri can be liable for it. So these three aspects of reusability, portability, and this I can use it when whoever issued this credential to me did not know where I will use it for. They just issued it to me as a fact or a claim or reputation about me, and then I can use it in multiple places. But that does not exist in the digital world today. What I'm going to tell you in the next few minutes is that it is possible to do that with the latest emerging technology and open standards to establish that today. And also the other part is our identities in the digital world are broken. How do you claim these things? Like in real world, I'm Giri, I'm a person, flesh, blood. Against this, I prove myself in multiple functional domains. Each may have an identifier, and against which I collate my data. So my driving license has an ID, but inherently is associated with me as a person. In digital world, it's all different identities in different multiple systems, and there's no easy way to aggregate all information about yourself in one single place. But that was, I think, an era of past. We have mechanisms to solve it today. And then this is a business challenge, that if your data is fragmented, how do businesses find out more about you and deal with it? So if I specifically mention some of the challenges, what I've been saying so far is like, how do you collect users' data as a business? How do you store that? And then more compliance challenges. Can you prove that you got it for the right purpose and you're using it for the right purpose? And inherently with multiple channels in which the users are interacting with you, now it's even getting more complex. You might have most of the checks and balance are maybe take a random check, do an audit, or at the time of project initiation, that am I following all the right processes? Once the data is in your system, how do you know that it's also following the right regulation and meeting the regulations? And once you store the data, it is in my mind a ticking time bomb, right? Like it's something that you have to protect really well. Otherwise, you have a huge risk sitting at you. So what I believe is, if you correlate the physical world with the digital world, if the data is directly gathered with consent from the user, and if the data format and it has the signatures and it can be trusted, then that's the right mechanism to at least establish how do you get data, not by buying it from a data broker or a third party or spoofing or through surveillance mechanism, because those things at some point will run under pressure and we'll have to give in. So how do we solve it? I think if I take a mental model, all our information in digital world is siloed in the walled gardens, and that's why we don't get the unique experience. And at the same time, businesses want that extra data about you in some context, not just what they have, what you have in other places. Like LinkedIn now started verification. Why is LinkedIn so popular? Because you are able to correlate all your data in LinkedIn, and from there that becomes your gateway to professional, access to professional and better services. So what if there was a personal data store, like equivalent of the wallet, right, which you could carry with you, and like you keep on changing wallets, right? There's no particular wallet in which your driving license can go. You can pick and choose whichever wallet works for you. You can aggregate information from multiple issuers of authority, put information in there, and then easily in person exchange that. Now if I try to relate that in digital world, is there a digital equivalent of how do I exchange this data with a machine, with a server, with an application? Can I do that easily today? One way I would say is like many of us, maybe we store information in WhatsApp, Google Drive. Is that good enough? I would say that is still built for human beings. Right? How you organize your data in Google Drive or WhatsApp is very unique to you, and how you tag it, to whom you are sending it. Machines cannot read it. Machines cannot request it. Now we are living in the age of personal AI, right? When the application business, even the B2B SaaS that you're building, maybe will be accessed by personal AI agents on behalf of the user, right? So how would you associate the right amount of access to that person and exchange information with that friendlier bot? Because all bots are not bad now. So that means we need a digital native, like a digital first wallet or vault, where you can establish the right amount of trust. Now I'll start getting into more of the technology behind it. So essentially this is the mental model Affinity has, that if we as users, and it's actually about any product, it can be a business, it can be an IoT, it can be a building, it can be a person. If they can collect, store, share data about themselves, that's the right autonomy, that's the right level of control, because then they can decide what's good for them, and that allows them to maybe monetize their data. And effectively, if the data is made more accessible for businesses, and if the value exchange is established, people share more freely. That's been the research as well. So let's see an example of what this experience could look like, and then I'll go unbundle the technology behind it. So it's a very simple example, somebody applying for a job. If they had this vault called Affinity Vault and an identity gateway, which is Affinity Login, the user can click on some place where they start their journey with Affinity Vault. It's a mobile app, it's available on Android, not exactly looks like this is an illustration, but you can start using it. And now within this vault, user is able to curate trusted data about themselves. And if once the information is available in one place, and it's done easily with connectors and ability to share, like we do UPI for money, right? Imagine you can have QR code somewhere which says this application, physical or online, is requesting information about you. I'll get a blue tick that, hey, this organization that's requesting it, can I trust that person or not, or the organization or not? And then amount of data that I have, I can granularly decide which amount of data I want to share or not share. If there's certain mandatory information I don't want to share, I don't get the service, but the control is with me to decide what I want. Businesses can still request this data. And all this thing is 2 clicks. Click a button, give consent, you're in. And so one of the first use cases is login or onboarding that anybody can use in their application, B2B, and we have few early customers who have deployed this in production. But I think the power is much more beyond onboarding. Just every interaction of your customers in your business, where you are asking them something, you can, instead of asking who you are, you can ask what is your intent, store that intent in your application and move on from there. So as I mentioned, first part now, unbundling the technology behind it. So you'll say, okay, if you collect the data from the user, how do you know I can trust that data? I can say I work at Microsoft. Would you trust that? What's the provenance for that, right? So you need to have some trust-based mechanism to say, can I really trust this data if it's coming from the user? That's why we have B2B relationship today, right? You connect B2B APIs because you know you can trust the data in another parties because you trust their systems and processes. But if I have to do it through the consumer, then what's the level of trust? I think the answer is the good old signatures. Very quick rundown to level set of how digital signatures work, right? It's a fact somebody wants to issue to the individual. or the organization, they sign that with a mathematics algorithm, and then the other side, when they receive a credential, they are able to know two things. One, the document has not been tampered with since the time it was issued, because the signature is still valid, and because they have the inverse relationship of the private key through which it was done, they can also know who really sent it, because that part cannot be repudiated. You cannot deny that I signed this document or not, because that's part of the digital signature. Specifically seeing how this works under the hood, typical two things we need: public key, private key if you're doing asymmetric encryption. You take a document, you can private as it says, you have private, you keep it with you, public is made available to people who need to be able to validate this information. You encrypt a document, make it gibberish, ciphertext, goes to the other side has your public key, they can decrypt this information, and voila, they now have the data. In this process, what happened? You sent a document where nobody else could see the document, only the receiving party could see the document, right? Digital signatures are slightly different. It says, I will send you the document in plain text, but you can check, there is enough material in there to check whether this document has not been modified, which is how it happens. Is like an issuer takes the document and then creates some sort of a digest, a small summary, like a digital footprint of the document, and creates something called hash. Right? They hash this document, and the hash is now encrypted with the private key of the user. Now, along with the document, they send the hash to the verifier, and now the verifier has the public key and has information about the hashing algorithm. So first they will take the same document, apply the public algorithm to derive a hash, because whatever document I have received, it says Giri worked at Microsoft, I have received it, I will create a hash out of it. Now that hash, I will compare, I got an encrypted hash from the issuer, I will use the public key to decrypt that, so that, because that message is only intended for me, nobody else, right? That's the part it proves. And now if I try to match those two things, if they don't match, then what's the result? It means something has been tampered, right? So that means Giri is actually not working in Microsoft, he was trying to fake it. Now machines can do this. This is how whenever you buy anything on the internet, you make a transaction, on your behalf some contract is executed, this is what is happening. And the beautiful part is, we are using it every day, every time, and none of us really think about it when we are doing it, right? Because of the maturity of this technology and the strength of this technology. Now same thing, now if I slightly change that, I say the same thing now comes through the user, same technology that we have so much relied on in internet, that is also available to the user. User also has a private public key. So issuer actually gives it to me, like in the physical world. Like I get a passport, I get a driving license, my relationship is with the issuer, I share some information and they exchange that thing for a credential. And then when I am presenting it to the verifier, I am signing it again. Like in paper world, many times we have done it. I never realized why I am doing this, like to whom it may concern. Like I take a paper PAN card or Aadhaar card photocopy and then I sign it with my signature, right? Because I think that proves to in the physical world, I cannot deny that I presented this. Same thing now, because the user has a private key, they can do a signature and then it can be proven to the verifier in a mathematical way that the user cannot deny that I signed and shared this document. Now if you really understand that, what's happening there is, it's a signed consent. So for the first time now we can have signed consent, not a checkbox that you just let the user select, put it in your database, and then when an audit guy comes you say I have taken at this date and time stamp, right? This is actually a signed document from the user clearly stating for what purpose, what amount of data they are giving to you. Maybe they are also allowing you to share with a third party, your business partners. Which business partners? You can include all of that in a NIST compliance, ISO compliance way and form a digital document, which then can also be, you can write a simple script which can evaluate this against the usage of this data and tell you in your organization, are you really compliant or not. Imagine when DPDPA comes up and you have to have a DPO officer and they have to do all this work, how much army of people will they need, and I don't know what those regulations will be, but at least I know if it is a mathematical way, it will be more efficient, right? So this is one part. Now, any developers here in the room? Okay, so founder, developer, good, few. So please come and we'll be happy to discuss more at our booth here on the underlying tech behind it. But what I'm going to leave you with a few impressions is just the power of this tech and what's available. So all of these are now becoming, it's available as an open standard technology. That means it's technology or vendor neutral. You may choose affinity, you may not choose affinity. This, what you're learning is still valid. And this is the power of this technology, why we also strongly believe in the choice is with the businesses and the users, what kind of things they use. But big thing is, I haven't seen so much investment and resources and advancements in standards on identity in the last few years as maybe in the last decade. So the last 3 years have been like really very impressive progression on the emerging technology, and many of these are matured. I'll give you an example. One of these is there in every house in India. I don't know if you can name that, but as we go along, let me know if you figure it out. So DID is your first digital native identifier. It's like your web address, which can be verified. You can prove mathematically, do you control this identifier or not, right? Basically, it's an identifier with a public-private key. Public key is discoverable, private key stays with you. This is how you as a user individual or an IoT device can prove without doubt who they are. And then verifiable credential is a format in which you share information in a package. It's like a data packet where you sign, where who's issued the document, to whom it is issued, what are the facts about this, and the signature, the digest is also there. So that creates a digital first document. The power is, when I share this when I share my driving license with the hotel, they'll see everything. Maybe they just wanted to know I'm a resident of a particular city or state or country or my age. I can't selectively disclose that because it's a paper full document. I either share everything or not. It's all or nothing. But in digital, the power is you can share parts of it as well. And you can compose and decompose this information. So that's the power of verifiable credential that's available to us. And then you need a way open handshake. It's not just sufficient that data itself is open. You need to be able to, like I send an email and SMS, right? Nobody controls that. It's an open standard. You can issue and you can say, hey, I go to Lifestyle, give me a receipt, they send you over an email. Can you do that same thing? Yes, you can. So OpenID for VCI is that open standard handshake where anybody can become an issuer, send you a verifiable credential. It can be your university, it can be your place of work. Say I work here at this role and this designation, they can issue a credential to you. PEX is like a SQL query into the data in a digital proof, like if I simplify it. And OpenID for verifiable presentation is that last part. Once I have a lot of data in my vault, if I have to share that, how do I package it? So I can take only 2 attributes, one credential, 5 attributes from another credential, in the end sign it with my signature and present it back to the relying party. So I'll skip over this as I said a lot of these things, but anybody who's interested to know more about DID, VCs, please come to our booth. I'm happy to talk more about it. The thing you can understand is that DIDs are a unique identifier against which you can correlate all your information. And you can have multiple DIDs. When I'm here today as a person, as a professional, I have an identity. When I maybe on Friday evening spend time with my friends, I'll have a different identity. What I share and how much I share about me, when I am on a gaming website, I may be a Mickey Mouse or something like that, right? Like, so that's a different identity. Nothing is wrong in that. That's how we live in the physical world. Can we have the digital equivalent of that? These technologies allow you to create that thing. And then verifiable credential is, why not, like how many of us have filled annual performance reviews, right? Many times, hopefully, our peers said good things about us, but that remains in the HR systems of that particular company, right? You don't get to access that after that. But what if you could create a portfolio of reputation of all the last 10, 20 years you've worked with, and if those peers could give you direct reputation claim, right? That I worked as your team lead, or I worked as your CTO, and I'm giving you this credential that you worked really hard on this project. They may keep the private information and sensitive information with them, but still they can share claims about how you took ownership of that project, how you made sure that within budget and the time it was delivered. Now, if this was available to you, now you see what kind of opportunities can be unleashed, right? In your freelancing, in your maybe in your place of work, maybe how you network with people across borders. If this can be trusted, this is the power of trusted data without boundaries, without walled gardens. So yeah, basically, I would say there's all standards available. That means they define how this should operate. If you're a compatible software, how this should operate. But then somebody needs to deploy the infrastructure, right? and these are still emerging. Like these are technologies in draft version, but still widely used, widely explored. So Affinity is setting up that digital trust infrastructure so that you can get started fast with these technologies, but that's completely up to you as a choice on how you do that. One thing is, I'll highlight the technology also works in a way for the first time again, which works in my mind in digital and physical world the same way. I have not seen a technology like that before that I can remember easily. Like you, I can go to a website with a QR code on it and share my data from the same vault without knowing or doing anything different. My father can do it, my brother can do it. I can go to an event like this. If I had to register, I can come. There can be a kiosk or an NFC tag to which I tap my phone and I can share this data. Because that means the format, it's transport agnostic, and that enables it to do cross-device scenarios as well. So that's the power of this tech that's available to us. So what does it change? It makes user the API. Now you can have direct interaction with user or thing that you want to talk to and directly get the data that you want, and you can trust it. And I believe this is the new age foundations of digital trust. Everything that we are building, B2B SaaS, B2C SaaS, any application that we are building should be positioned to be able to verify data, create these credentials, work with that portable trusted data. You may decide at different points you are in different parts of this journey, right? You may be an issuer of data to people. Maybe you think this is the right way for you to operate for certain types of data. You're anyways giving them over email and SMS, or they can check out from your application. Why not give them as a verifiable credential so that they can get more bang for the buck? Or you can say, right now I just think I want to collect more data. I just want more trusted data. Is it about identity resolution or your past reputation? I think somebody else is helping them curate these credentials, which is okay, good. I just want to be a receiver. That's also okay. But I think we need to start on this journey definitely. And what it will do is it will create a human-like relationship model in our digital interactions. And I think it also simplifies architecture, because everything that I said about compliance, like how do you get consent-driven data, now it becomes very simple. Because every time the user has to just always sign a consent. They don't have to do anything differently. You don't have to worry about it. You just get a consent VC. You don't have to establish a consent service on your side. And I think more and more the quality of the data improves. Because if I know why I'm sharing something with you, if let's say it was a B2B SaaS company, reached out to me on LinkedIn, wants to know whether I'm buying a dev tools or not. And if they don't, I sometimes feel uncomfortable that they know my email ID and they know my phone number. Right? That means I'll keep getting calls from them even if I said no to somebody. How about I can have a trusted interaction with them where I can share I'm looking for it or not looking for it. If I'm looking for it, they exchange value with me. Otherwise, they delay the messaging to me, right? Because otherwise, they're just reducing their reputation of just trying to hog and spam me. So this, I think, can improve the interactions on the internet. And especially once I feel more trusted, I will share more data with you. So where do you get started? I think how do you collect data is the first place. Can you ask users to give verifiable credentials? And I'll come to one question you may have, who's issuing it, right? And there's some large scale projects that are happening, so I'll talk about that. And then once you have this data, because it reduces friction, it's good for business. Imagine if you could ask a lot of data from the user. They don't have to fill a lot of forms. It's same behavior again and again on different websites, whether it is for login or sharing more information about them. If they will share more with you, so it reduces friction. And then obviously it has to be trusted. We are talking about the deepfake, synthetic identity, all these problems, right? So I need to know it's really you on the other side. How do I do that? In physical world, I can shake hands with you and you will know I'm a real person, right? How do I do that in digital world? I think something similar. I have the gesture. I can present my face. I can present my bio fingerprint. And every transaction, if that's unlocked and done through that, it proves that I at least was present in that transaction, unless somebody cut off my thumb, right? Like, so you know that the person has to be there without taking their biometric, because I'm just using the biometric to unlock my vault or the prove control to my private key, which is on the secure enclave of my phone. So I'm just establishing trust by using my biometric to sign something, give it to you on which you can rely. And that's why I think to prepare better for emerging threats, you have to be on the cryptography layer. Like you have to be on the top of this pyramid. You can't be doing password tokens, multi-factor authentication through SMS, email. I think all these are broken to a large extent. If you really want to have very strong security posture, I would encourage you to start at the top. And something very soon we'll all be anyways using. Has anyone started using passkeys? Few of them, right? I think this is becoming new norm. So that's with the FIDO standard and the CTAB. You can start anything that you do on the internet. You just want to start anonymous. It actually just proves the identity of your device, not you. So you can have Mickey Mouse, Santa Claus, whatever username. It doesn't really care. It cares for each website domain. You have created a digital key on your device, and it works cross-device on that particular ecosystem, Apple, Google, Microsoft, and then you can exchange the information. So at least start there, but I think you'll need to go higher on any business application, not just the device identity, but who you are. And that comes at the top of the layer from all these technologies. So yeah, in cybersecurity posture, I would say one is just add passwordless authentication using passkeys or digital keys in your application. Use automated liveness check. Now this is an interesting aspect. I'll pause for a minute. I said you can use portable reusable identity like digital world, like wallets, passport, documents. Let's say somebody's already verified my profile. My background verification is done. If I capture that as a digital signed document, one way is I can just present this to the application. And you should be able to establish trust that yes, Giri at that particular time was proven to be not having criminal records or whatever. But then you don't do this continuously. And I would say the current age and time, we may have to revalidate the background information, but also at the time that how do you know this information is really presented by Giri, he cannot deny that. At that point, you can also add a liveness check, which actually proves it's not too much friction. It's like, again, opening up a camera and just going through it. It will become more and more common. So one is with this technology, once my data is in the vault, you can start adding that. And then you can do continuous monitoring. Why now? Because if you see now the secret is out. I was filling one document that's there in everybody's home in India, right? The COVID-19 certificate was issued as a verifiable credential to all of us. It did not have a holder DID or the holder identifier. They use like a syntax workaround for that because it's hard to educate 1 billion people in that period of time. But this document helped you to cross borders and establish trust and do your business safely. Same thing with NDI. So a lot of public institutions. Europe is setting up an identity and authentication trust services, which is going to in 2026 create seamless way for European citizens to move across borders and do business or get access to public services. So all this means is that there is going to be liquidity of verifiable credentials in the market. There will be data available about public proof of your citizenship, your tax records or something like that. People will have it in their chosen, maybe issuers will have their own wallet to start with. Like in India we have DigiLocker. You might start your documents there, but then because of the portable nature of the document can flow from anywhere to anywhere. It's not locked. So I think there will be liquidity, so we should get started. So how is Affinity helping in that journey? We are building tools on top of completely open standards compatible, so that you can start experimenting quickly and get your hands on this technology. So Affinity Vault is one such application available as a web form, Android, and soon to be on iOS, where it supports ability to collect data in an OID for VCI format and share it in OID for VP. But we're not stopping there. We know businesses will need much more than that, right? They'll need a framework to operate in and get most value out of it. So what Affinity Vault is going to do is allow with connectors users to collect information about themselves from multiple systems. It could be a LinkedIn, it could be a social media application, it could be games, it could be other SAP or ERP the CRM applications from which they can check out information about them. And with Affinity Login, they can use this as part of login or onboarding, or through IOTA framework, which is our way of saying run small query against the user's data. So businesses can push query information, what you want from the user, and a small query can run against the data. So run the query closer to where the data is and just get the insights, so that you don't have to worry about the PII. But because it will be based on a digital signature proof, you can know that I am above 18 from a document that was issued from a trusted trust registry. I just don't know the date of birth of Giri, but I know he's above 18 for sure. Like I can go to the code and say this is valid. I have enough mathematical evidence of that. So that we can do. And then messaging. messaging is one, the layer 2 service, where if you think about it, there's no safe, secure way of interacting with people. Imagine if I have a letterbox and you also have a letterbox as a business. We decide that these two letterboxes can talk to each other over an open protocol handshake. That means you can pick another vendor, I can pick another vendor, both will work. And now in this interaction, we can start exchanging value. And I can also share, you can ask me, I can start my relationship anonymously and then grow in value to prove my verified data. Imagine new ways of OLX, new ways of anything like prospecting, lead gen, right? Where nobody wants to share their phone number and email. So all that is now going to be possible with secure messaging layer because both sides will have DID, cryptography. I'm not sharing my phone number or email. I can create a temp DID, start a relationship, exchange. If I see value, I upgrade. If I don't see value, I ghost you. I just kill my mediator service. Right? So I'd love to speak more with you on these application architectures and how you can develop. Some use cases I'll leave you with is that quick animations, but just that if you are storing PII data in your CRM databases, you can skip that and maybe leave it in the user's vault so that you have lesser liability of sensitive data on your site. Your CRMs can look like a yes-no database, right? If you don't want to store all the information about the user. You can imagine scenarios where like access control within your organizations. You can have proof of employment, proof of entitlements, proof of eligibility collected as credentials, and you work, if you are a human resources company deploying people in another organization, and if they need to get access to a system of like break glass fix, then they can do that with just credentials dynamically at the time of exchange of that transaction. So with this, I'll say for businesses, you can integrate through the customer is one opportunity. We are seeing some trends there to different LOBs within the same company or multiple companies in a conglomerate, which they cannot otherwise talk to each other through B2B. They can talk through the customer and get this data. You can create omni-channel experiences on what the intent is without the who, and you can reduce cost of managing sensitive customer data. With messaging and trusted layers, you can run segment of one campaigns with your user, and with credentialing infrastructure, you can establish trust at low cost because information will be available, liquidity will be available, and we can make opt-in consent as the default instead of opt-out consent that we see on the internet. So thank you for your time, and I'd love to, we can take, I think I'm out of time, but we'll love to take questions. I'll stay here, or if you want to meet one of us at the booth, love to hang out and interact. We're just getting started. We're also hiring, so if anyone of you is looking for, to build this rocket ship together, you can join us. But lay strong foundation of digital infrastructure, build one-to-one relationship because that's going to be the norm, I think, going forward. Get started by replacing passwords. Absolutely, like if there's one thing you can take away from this session, just go and ask your teams to not build with username and password anymore. And protect customer data in the right way through right consent management solution. I think those techs are available. Thank you.